Welcome to day one of the Eating Well high fiber, I think it's high fiber, low sugar, insulin resistance meal plan. It is 4:30 in the afternoon, evening, whatever you want to call that. I have a couple kids digging holes outside. I have one kid who's hungrily trying to stay occupied while I try to throw dinner together, and one kid who is taking a break after school. All right, so we've decided that for our Salmon Power Bowls tonight, we are going to use quinoa instead of farro. And I also added some amaranth just because we have it and I want to use it, and it feels like it's in the same kind of general class as quinoa. So amaranth is really hard to rinse because the grain is so fine. I thought quinoa was bad. Amaranth is worse. Anyway, quinoa. Rinse it before you use it. Otherwise, it's bitter. That's what I've heard. I've never had a problem with it. I've always rinsed it. And then my favorite method for making quinoa is it's like rice in that you do, so for instance, tonight I'm making 1 cup of quinoa. So I used 1 cup of the dry quinoa. So I'll put in 2 cups of water. I usually make too much, so I've actually tried to back off how much I make. But since these are grain bowls, I thought I would go ahead and make a full cup. So 1 cup of the quinoa, 2 cups of water, bring it to a boil, keep it covered, turn it down low to simmer until the water is absorbed. Usually, that's my lids falling because my cupboards are a wreck. So usually it takes about 15 minutes for all the water to be absorbed, and then whatever recipe I found when I first started making quinoa said that if you turn off the heat, so remove it from heat, and then be sure to let it sit covered for 5 minutes after the cooking is done. And I believe that the residual steaming pops all the little kernels open, and so it's supposed to make it fluffier. So again, this is the only way I've ever made quinoa, so I can't tell you if there's a different way that's better or worse. This is just the way I know to make it. So Salmon Power Bowl, so I have 4 pieces of salmon here. I use frozen salmon because I've heard that all fish is frozen fish, and when you buy it fresh in the store, it's just they thought it instead of you. So I always buy frozen fish. I'm not sure if that's actually true. It's just sometime I had heard that and it stuck in my brain. So I haven't ever actually finished the research on that. Just I get frozen fish. The other reason I get frozen fish is because my plans go awry so often that it's so much easier when it's frozen, because if I decide I'm not going to eat salmon, then my fish isn't sitting there rotting in the fridge. It's just in the freezer till I'm ready for it. So, and I think, again, I'd probably have to look, but generally I think the frozen fish is also cheaper. Okay, so I have a headache. I don't feel like cooking. I got hungry kids, and I really just want to kind of throw something at them to keep everybody happy. But we're going to go ahead and power through and make this dinner. So instead of the farro, I have quinoa going. I put that on first because that way that can be all cooking while I'm doing the rest of this stuff. Olive oil, lemon juice are easy and done. They have dill and parsley, which I'm just going to use dried instead of fresh chopped. And I need 4 cups of chopped red cabbage and some chopped carrots. And then cumin, coriander. Okay, and a cucumber chopped. Okay, so I've already done step 1 here, combine water and farro. Basically, that's making your grain. So we're gonna make a little slaw here. So oil, lemon juice, some spices, and then we're gonna put the cabbage and carrots in there. So I better get those done next. So for this, it feels like it's a coleslaw. It says to matchstick the carrots. Matchsticking is taking way too long. I'm sure there's some gadget that would make it really quick and easy. I don't feel like using a gadget, so I am just going to cut these pieces small. I may regret that. My husband is probably going to tell me why I'm supposed to matchstick and not just cut them. But for right now, this is a decision I'm making, and we'll see how it works. So one of my main strategies for trying to cook with kids who are hungry, depending on the age, of course. My youngest one it does work generally to have her sit here, and I just kind of toss her, like I'm giving her cucumber tonight, slices of cucumber, so she just starts dinner before everybody else and kind of grazes while I make dinner, and then when everybody else is ready, we actually sit down and eat. Those of you who have kids and you're cooking, cabbage. Red cabbage is wonderful for kids. You can stick it in a blender and blend it with just plain old water. One leaf in like 4 or 8 cups of water usually is plenty, and it gives you a beautiful purple water. I think it's the anthocyanins in the cabbage. And then kids can add vinegar or baking soda or any variation of acids and bases that you want to do, and it turns colors. It's super fun, very cheap and easy. Okay, so I'm subbing dried herbs for fresh herbs. I want to say it's like 1/3 that you're supposed to do. I should look it up and find out for sure. I'm going to estimate. Dangerous. So this is calling for 1 tablespoon of chopped fresh dill and parsley. Good, I grabbed cilantro. Whoops. Dill and parsley, 1 tablespoon. So I'm going to do a teaspoon. Or maybe even less than that. So the dried stuff is just more concentrated. So I think actually I'm going to do a 1/2 teaspoon of the dill here, and then I'll do a 1/2 teaspoon of the parsley. Let's see where that gets us. So when using dried instead of fresh, the general rule of thumb that I've seen is it's about 1/3. So like you'd use 3 times as much fresh as you do dry. So I did a teaspoon of the parsley and the dill and the dressing. Okay, so finally to the salmon. I have the cabbage and the carrot stuff mixed up with the dressing on top. So now I can do the salmon. I'm going to turn my pan on and get that warming up. And then I put a paper towel on a plate. I have my thawed salmon. I put a paper towel on a plate, and then I plop my salmon out of my bag onto the paper towel to get it dried off a little bit, and then I will sprinkle some salt on there. I don't put any pepper on because I have a kid who complains about spiciness. And you can hear my other kid is saying my plate is empty. So quinoa is done. The cabbage and the carrot stuff is ready. I just have to cut some cucumbers and grab the feta cheese. So once the salmon is in the pan, I will do that. So the salmon, you do it on a medium-high heat for the first 3 or 4 minutes, and then you flip it and you do it on a low heat for another 2 to 3 minutes. I almost always have forgotten to turn the heat down to low, like the first 15 times I did this recipe. Not this recipe, but cooking salmon this way in a pan. And so then I was overcooking my salmon. But if you do it right, I find this method to be really, really easy. And the skin for me comes off really, really easy when I do it this way. I really like this method because when I do it right, it turns out really well. Okay, so I just reviewed the recipe and see that it calls for cumin and coriander. So, oh dear, not enough. Yeah, I'm done waiting alarm is going off over there. So I will do cumin and coriander on 2 pieces, and 2 pieces I will leave plain. Again, because we have some spice, what do you call it? Spice avoidance issues. Okay, and then there was something else on there. So salmon, oil, hot pan. So theoretically, you know a pan is hot and ready when the oil is shimmering. I have actually been able to see this occasionally. It's kind of neat. If you let the oil get too hot in the pan, because you're changing a dirty diaper in the middle of making dinner, because I know that never happens for anybody but me. If you let it stay too long, then it can actually burn the oil and can impart a bitter flavor to your cooking. I cannot get this lid off. More realities of life moments. I'm probably going to cut my finger with this knife because I'm not doing this properly. Okay, I did not cut myself. Yay. Right. So oil is shimmering. Let's see. Yes, it is actually a rare night that I am not being called away about 15 times in this process, which is really nice because it is so frustrating to try cooking when you get interrupted every 3 minutes for arguing kids and dirty diapers and, you know, things. Nights that I can just sort of focus and do this are really nice. Salmon shimmery oil. So I'm going to do skin side down first. Spicy pieces first. I don't know if all 4 of these are going to fit in here. All right, and then we set a timer. Timer for 4 minutes. And here we go. Okay, so now that we're on the final stretch here, the salmon is cooking. That's the last big piece. So I am getting out my bowls. I'm going to put everything else in the bowls so that when the salmon finishes, hopefully I can just go ahead and put it all together and we're going to eat. This is also the point I should be calling off everybody to come wash up because it's going to take that long for everyone to get kind of situated. We'll see how this goes. So here we are at the 4-minute mark. You can see that it's cooked a little bit through the salmon steaks here, and then we're going to flip them. Yep, totally did the salmon backwards. You start skin side up, and you cook the main thing first, and then you go skin side down on the second turn. Should have just looked at the instructions. Okay, backwards though I cooked them. They are cooked. I look for the white stuff coming out of there, and I look for them to flake nicely. So that's, well, actually, no, that's not. That dark spot in the middle I don't like. So I'm actually going to leave that for a minute. Let's see what this one looks like. Oh, I kind of messed them up. Oops. I kind of messed these up. You're not supposed to flip them back. This is going to be dried and flaky or dried out. I'm going to let these cook another couple minutes on the other side. So, I mean, good news, it's rice bowl or grain bowls, so hopefully the dried out bit will be a little bit covered up by the grain bowls, but yeah, this was not my best salmon round ever.